So, Napoleon is finally gone. After a continent-spanning 25-year bender of revolution and conquest, Europe woke up with a pounding headache and a map that looked like a toddler's finger painting. Someone had to clean up the mess. In the autumn of 1814, everyone who was anyone, emperors, kings, princes, and about 1,000,000 attachés, descended upon Vienna. The goal was to put the world back together, to turn back the clock to a time before that short Corsican upstart made a habit of dissolving thousand-year-old empires. Officially, it was a solemn diplomatic conference. Unofficially, it was the most lavish, expensive, and gossip-fueled party series in history, complete with a network of spies so extensive that the chief of police spent most of his time reading other people's mail. Running this show were the so-called Big Four, the victors. From Austria, you had Prince Clemens von Metternich, the host. A man so arrogant and convinced of his own brilliance, he probably thought the sun rose just to hear his opinions. His primary goal was stability, which was a fancy word for making sure nobody ever got any revolutionary ideas again. Representing Great Britain was Lord Castlereagh, a man so emotionally reserved he made a block of granite look expressive. He just wanted to ensure no single power could threaten Britain's global shipping business. Then there was Tsar Alexander I of Russia, who swung wildly between being a liberal idealist and a religious mystic with a messiah complex. He arrived in Vienna thinking he was God's chosen instrument to redesign Europe. And Prussia, well, Prussia was there too, mostly hoping to pick up some new territory in the confusion. Into this room of victors walks Charles Maurice de Talleyrand-Pregor, representing the loser, France. This man had more political comebacks than a slasher movie villain. He'd served the monarchy, the revolution, Napoleon, and now the restored monarchy, betraying each one at the perfect moment. His personal motto should have been, "Treason is just a matter of timing." The Big Four planned to ignore him, to decide France's fate while he waited in the lobby. But Talleyrand, armed with a single, devastatingly clever idea, outmaneuvered them all. That idea was legitimacy. He argued they couldn't just carve up Europe based on who won. They had to restore the legitimate rulers and borders from before Napoleon. This masterstroke turned the victor's land grab into a principled restoration, with France positioned as a respectable, long-lost partner. So began the great redrawing of the map, a process that resembled a fantasy football draft where the players were nations and the draft picks were millions of people who had no say in the matter. To keep France contained, they created buffer states. The old Dutch Republic and the Austrian Netherlands were smashed together to create the United Kingdom of the Netherlands, a forced marriage of Protestants and Catholics that everyone knew would end in a messy divorce. Prussia was given huge chunks of territory on the Rhine, the logic being that making Prussia stronger right on France's border would keep Paris on its best behavior. Austria, in exchange for losing the Netherlands, got to dominate Italy, grabbing Lombardy and Venetia. Every decision was about creating a neat, tidy box around France. The biggest fight, the one that almost restarted the war, was over Poland and Saxony. Tsar Alexander wanted all of Poland, which had been partitioned 3 times already. It was his pet project, a shiny new kingdom where he could be a constitutional monarch, at least on paper. Prussia agreed to this, but only if they could have the entire kingdom of Saxony as compensation. Metternich and Castlereagh nearly had heart attacks. Giving that much land to Russia and Prussia would completely destroy any balance they were hoping to achieve. Things got so heated that on January 3, 1815, Britain, Austria, and a newly included France signed the secret treaty, pledging to go to war against Russia and Prussia. They were literally preparing to fight their own allies from the last war. Networking at its finest. This brings us to the Congress's favorite buzzword, balance of power. It sounds nice, doesn't it? Principled even, but it had nothing to do with peace. The idea wasn't to stop wars, it was to create a system where no single country could get powerful enough to steamroll the entire continent like Napoleon had. Think of it like a group of 5 very large, very aggressive roommates in a house. They don't agree to stop fighting, they just agree that if any one of them starts building a weapon in their bedroom that could demolish the whole house, the other 4 will team up to stop them. It was a system of institutionalized paranoia designed to manage, not eliminate, conflict. While everyone was in Vienna squabbling, dancing, and signing secret treaties against each other, they forgot one tiny detail: Napoleon. On March 1, 1815, he escaped from his sad little island exile on Elba, landed in France, and started marching toward Paris. The news hit Vienna like a thunderbolt. The panic was immediate and spectacular. All the infighting over Saxony stopped overnight. Nothing unites a dysfunctional family like the return of the person who made them miserable in the first place. They quickly declared Napoleon an outlaw, a public enemy, and put their armies back together. His return, ironically, was the best thing that could have happened to the Congress. It forced everyone to finally agree on a map and focus on the real problem, the guy who was ridiculously good at winning battles. After Napoleon's final, conclusive defeat at Waterloo, the Allies returned to their paperwork, but with less patience. France was punished a bit more harshly this time. They had to pay a hefty indemnity and accept an army of occupation for a few years, like a teenager grounded for crashing the family car a second time. The final map was set. The German Confederation was officially created. A collection of 39 German states, including parts of Austria and Prussia, designed to be just strong enough to stop a French invasion, but too weak and divided to ever unite and become a threat themselves. It was a masterpiece of political engineering, a deliberately dysfunctional organization meant to keep Central Europe in a state of managed weakness. What could possibly go wrong? Just when you thought things couldn't get weirder, Tsar Alexander, in a fit of religious fervor, proposed the Holy Alliance. This wasn't a military or political treaty. It was a pledge between the monarchs of Austria, Prussia, and Russia to conduct their affairs based on the holy precepts of justice, Christian charity, and peace. They wanted to create a brotherhood of Christian monarchs. Metternich privately called it a loud-sounding nothing, but signed it anyway to humor the Tsar. Castlereagh thought Alexander had gone completely mad and cleverly dodged signing by saying the British Constitution didn't allow the king to make personal treaties. The Pope, for his part, was deeply unimpressed with a group of Orthodox and Protestant rulers telling him about Christian unity. The real legacy of Vienna wasn't some holy nonsense, it was the concert of Europe. This was the system where the great powers agreed to meet whenever a crisis emerged, usually a crisis involving people demanding rights and constitutions. It became an instrument for suppressing liberalism and nationalism everywhere. When a revolution broke out in Spain in 1820 demanding a constitution, the concert authorized France, yes, France, to invade and restore the absolute monarch. They did the same in Italy, sending Austrian troops to crush revolts in Naples and Piedmont. It was a club of kings dedicated to making sure the genie of the French Revolution was shoved back into the bottle and sealed with cement. The people, of course, were not consulted. And here we see the fatal flaw in their brilliant plan. By treating Europe like a collection of royal estates to be traded among monarchs, they completely ignored two growing forces: nationalism and liberalism. They didn't care that they were handing German-speaking Rhinelanders to Prussia or putting Italian-speaking Lombards under Austrian rule. They created a German confederation designed to be weak, which only made German nationalists want a unified Germany even more. They chopped up Italy and put it under the thumb of foreign princes, which practically guaranteed an Italian unification movement. They drew lines on the map without any regard for the people living inside them. They weren't solving problems, they were just postponing them and adding interest. The bill for all this convenient map drawing would come due spectacularly in 1848 and again in 1914. So, was the Congress of Vienna a success? Well, if the goal was to prevent another continent-wide war for a while, then yes, it more or less worked. Aside from the occasional temper tantrum like the Crimean War, the great powers didn't have another all-out brawl for nearly 100 years. That's an impressive record. But if the goal was to create lasting peace and stability, the answer is a resounding no. The entire system was based on suppressing the very ideas that would define the next century. It was a brilliant, elegant, and sophisticated solution to yesterday's problem, which created the perfect pressure cooker for tomorrow's catastrophe. They stopped another Napoleon, but they paved the road to World War I. A perfect example of winning the battle, but setting the stage to lose the war. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!